Right, there we go. I'm presuming this is working. So, Ask Witch today hasn't technically got a title, has it, Chris? So, what is it that we're going to be discussing on today's Ask a Witch? Technically, it could be anything because anyone can ask a question. So, is it going to be an open mic night type deal or what?
Yeah, let's do that. Open mic. Whatever's
open
getting
mic,
at you.
Open mic deal. So you can ask Chris anything you like. I get a free pass because I'm not very well, you see.
Okay. Is that how it works now, is it?
Yeah, I think I've just made that rule, yeah.
Okay.
Should we start them off on a couple of questions on that?
Yeah.
You look blankly at the screen.
Sorry, I like to have the screen playing it at the same time.
You like to look at yourself, don't you? Yeah. Okay.
No, I like to know that we're working.
Oh, okay. Well, we are working. This is our job. There we go. We got people watching. Sky's watching. Boo, she says. So, Chris, then, given that we haven't got any current questions yet with regards to magic or Chris's personal life or anything, what is the dumbest magical question you have ever been asked?
Oh, okay. Are you Wiccan?
Have you actually been asked that?
Yeah. I've been asked if I'm Wiccan or if I'm a pagan, as if those are the only two choices.
I thought one was very similar to the other, but then it depends on whether you think neo-pagan is a thing.
Neon pagans and neon Wiggins.
Neon Wiggins and
neon Wiggins.
Yeah. Sky's got a question. Is it true you can actually turn people into frogs? Lady Poison did that. There's a story of Lady Poison, our friend Lady Poison from the group, turning someone into a frog. Is presumably that would be the stupidest question you've personally been asked, Sky. I'm presuming that you're not actually asking us whether that's possible, because I'm presuming that you'd know whether that's possible. And the answer to that question is, of course, you can turn people into frogs. It's how you turn them into frogs. So, are you going to kill someone and then trap their spirit in a frog until the frog dies? Or are you going to do some sort of backward manifestation like what Lady Poison did, which was she told someone, I think it was a bet or something like that. If I remember the story, I'll have to get her to tell it because this might not be 100% correct. She had a bet on with someone and they said that she said something along the lines of she would turn them into a frog if they lost. And they did lose. I don't think she did any magic, but they turned their Facebook and social media Facebook profile into a frog. So for all intents purposes, technically, they are turned into a frog to a certain extent, because physically they might not be. But let's be fair, if you're online in an online person, if your online avatar is essentially your Facebook profile and you change that to a frog, then people are interacting with a frog now. So I would say that that's a kind of partial manifestation.
Okay.
What would you say, Chris? Would that be a partial manifestation?
It's a something manifesting. But yeah, I would kind of go with the transfer. Yes, but to answer the question properly, transfiguration is trickier. We're not saying it's out of the realms of possibility, but it does require a ridiculous amount of power.
Yeah. Partial manifestations is what a lot of people call fucking up.
Yeah.
But I would say it would depend on what you consider to be a fuck up. So if I threaten someone that I'm going to turn their firstborn child into an elephant, and they haven't got a firstborn child yet, but when it pops out, it's got really bad skin, like that elephant skin, you know? Like the elephant man. If it turned out like that, technically, would you class that as a bad manifestation? Or a fuck up?
Not,
Because
I wouldn't call
they
it a
go
fuck
through their
up.
whole life of being called the elephant man, Chris, and they kind of look like an elephant. I mean, they're not actually an elephant, but that would depend on me as the magical practitioner what I was aiming for. If I
Yeah.
was aiming for them to be an elephant, maybe that's the best I can pull off. The stigma of going throughout life looking somewhat like an elephant and being called an elephant man. Who knows? Am I going to get into trouble for bringing health conditions and that up?
Possibly, but I had expected you to say, would a partial win be if I said I'd turn them into an elephant, and they were hung like an elephant trunk with like a humongous like 12-inch dick? Would that technically class as a botched job because it was
Do
supposed to
elephants
be a
have big
curse?
dicks?
Huh?
Do elephants have big dicks? I know they got trunks, but I would
I
imagine
can't.
turning someone into a donkey would be. Do I have to
No,
Google
as
it?
in like a trunk is what I
Like a
meant.
trunk. Oh right, okay,
Not that
right.
elephants have actually got a big dick. I don't know,
Is that
Liam.
is that what you do with your enemies,
Bestiality is
Chris?
not my thing.
Is that what you do with your enemies? You make them grow large?
No,
Because there is a
that's not what
story
I
of that
said.
happening. There is a story of that happening. Making a big dick, have a big dick, right? If someone is a massive dick, a dickhead, then you could theoretically do some magic to make them have a big dick. But it could be, again, a really bad medical condition where it all like puffs up, right? So it don't necessarily need to be a particularly good thing, does it?
Well, no, I didn't say either. But my point was, I'm surprised that you didn't go straight to junk, because that's pretty much all you've done for the last week.
Junk.
Is is
Well, I don't
just
think
talk
I brought this
constantly
up, did
about.
I? I don't think I brought this up.
Okay, whatever.
I think
Let
you're
it
the one
let it
that said
slide.
about elephants. You're the
You're
one that said
clearly
about
ill.
elephants. I am
You're
ill. I'm
clearly
not very
ill, is
well.
all I'm going to
Be nice.
say.
Um, my mental illness has spread to the rest of my body. um, like the whole genie thing, like from films and books and that, you know, be careful what you wish for. You ask for a big, and then it gets infected, and then it is big, but it's rather discolored and sensitive, and yeah.
See, that's what I would consider a botched spell. Whereas what you're
Not if that
calling.
was the intention.
Okay.
If it, do these genies from the films, do they intend to say, I've been trapped in a bottle, I'll give you what you want, but it's not going to be what you want because they're bitter and twisted like me? Or is it just that they're doing their best and are crap at magic? Or is it some sort of angel on a cloud or something interfering with the magic because, you know, someone that's had a hard life like Aladdin, clearly, you know, 3 wishes coming true is far too much for the universe to grant.
No, my understanding is that genies are heavily mercurial and therefore like the play on words. So let's fuck shit up is my understanding of genies. But then maybe that's just the ones that like to hang around with me.
Right.
I
Okay.
just like wordplay.
Yeah. So Alexandra says, I think they must have pretty big dicks in fairness. What's she talking about? Is she talking about
dick.
us?
Elephant dick.
There is no context to that, Alexandra. That just
Elephant
popped
dick.
up on my screen.
No, it popped up at the right time, Liam. You just paid no attention.
Wait a minute. No, okay, yeah, there's a scroll thing. I can scroll down. Okay. Elephants, that's what she's talking about. It's about like the ratio and proportions, though, isn't it? Because if it's a big body and it's quite big by looking at it, is that in proportion with the rest of the body? You know, that's what I would say, Alexandra. I don't know. We would have to Google it, or maybe ask a large animal vet, perhaps.
Okay.
Sky says, as could many women really take that size dick, thus cut off their bloodline. Right. This is all turning really rather dirty, and I'm not entirely sure why. Let's see if we can go with a sensible person. There's a video on an Etsy witch whose customer asked her to cast a spell for him to have an elephant dick. What's these people's obsessions with dicks all of a sudden, honestly? How did you first know you were a witch? That's Michelle's question. Either that's a question or that's in response to me asking what are the most stupid questions people have asked. And I'm worried now, Chris, because if I say and I pick one such as, yes, that is a very stupid question, but then Michelle genuinely asked the question, that would make me look like a bully, wouldn't it?
Well, you are a bully. What's your point?
So I am a bully. Yes, I am a bully. So I would say that, is that a really stupid question? Is that a stupid question? Is that a stupid question, though? I don't know, because I'm looking at it from the perspective of if you're a mundane person that grows up watching a Harry Potter and a Charmed and reading books, that might be a logical question because they don't have any experience. So I would say from someone that is not used to dealing with witches, that would be, I think, a fair question. However, how do you first know you were a witch if that came from an experienced witch? Is that also a silly question? Because maybe they're trying to determine whether you're of the elitist super witch variety, like Chris, or maybe they're trying to work out whether you learned everything from a Scott Cunningham book. Who knows? So I don't know whether that I would class that as actually that stupid a question. And the reason why I'm talking about stupid questions for people that have just tuned in is because I literally opened with, as our first question to Mr. Chris, the fastest witch of them all, what's the stupidest question you've ever been asked, like magic-wise? So, Chris, you said, am I a Wiccan? Was the stupidest question you've been asked. Is that right?
Yeah.
Why do you think that's a stupid question?
Because it's based on an assumption that, you know, all witches are Wiccans or vice versa. And that just shows a lack of understanding.
Is it though? Is it? What if you turned up at a moot? What if you turned up at a moot and a lady poison or someone said, "Are you a Wiccan?" And you said no, and she said, "Come to and sit with the cool kids." What if that is that really a stupid question? Then is it about the context, or are you thinking of a very specific person that asked you that question once?
I think it would, even from the lady poison point of view, it would be a stupid question, because no way would me walking into a room would Lady Poison go, "Oh, you look like you might be a Wiccan," because I don't think that's going to happen, is it, Liam?
This is possibly true. Yes, okay.
So, in both contexts,
and Michelle is asking us about our experience out of curiosity, so it's a genuine question, and I don't think it's a stupid question, Michelle, but he does.
No, I didn't. You're the only one that put that context in. I assumed it was a real question.
Well, I wasn't too sure because we did ask about people to tell us. This was my fault because this was a super dangerous thing to do, because I asked everyone to tell us essentially what the most stupidest questions they've ever been asked. Yet this is also a Q&A show, so now we have to pick through them, stupid me, and try and ascertain whether they're genuine questions or whether they're questions people have been asked that they think are stupid, which is terrible.
Okay, Liam.
My fault, everyone. I'm sorry. But you can't hold it against me because I'm ill. Look, I've got tissue.
Okay. So
We have a question.
we have several
Excited
here.
question. An excited question. Do goddess often preempt a witch asking for help and ask the target if they can help them before the witch approaches them? That has been known to happen with a certain goddess called Bridget, yes. That has been known to happen. I wonder, Miss Katie Veronica, why you ask such a thing. I do wonder that. I think I already know the answer to it, but I'm wondering nonetheless and what you're alluding to, because I think you already know the answer to that question, which either means you want to ask another question but give context to your next question, or it means you want me to talk about that kind of realms of things. We'll wait
Okay.
and see what you put next to give us the answer to that. Sky has been asked, have I drunk the blood of a demon? Oh,
I find they're
okay.
tricky things to bleed, to be
I'd be
fair.
interested to know what answer you'd have given to that, Sky. She says drunk, not drink. So, has she ever drunk the blood of a demon? Not would she drink the blood of a demon? Because we all know she would if she could. But has she? That's what we want to know. So, yeah. This is a Q&A show. Please feel free to ask us any questions related to magic or whatever. Any questions you do ask, I will pose to Mr. Chris.
Okay. You missed Lestari's one at the beginning.
Oh, did I? Sorry. Have I got to go up?
This one.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even see that. Can you get to a point where you do not need to use other sources of energy to power spell work effectively? Yes, it's the first thing we teach on the Intro to Spellcrafting course. Just your own power, no other power. So yes, you can do it. Giving a little bit of context to that, generally speaking, what I would say is use your own power first only so that you know how much power you're able to generate, so that you know what you can actually do on your own. I.e., pick a load of weights up until you get to the number that you can't lift, and then you know how much weight you can lift. Logical, just the same thing with magic. And then when you want to do that magical thing that's beyond what you're capable of doing, obviously we would aim to grow stronger magically, but you would then add other energies to make up for your problem. So whether that's asking a friend to help move that sofa, or whether it's using some sort of a sofa lifting device, like a forklift truck or something. Don't overthink it. You might not be able to fit an forklift truck in your house, but that's beside the point. I'm using that as a example, okay? Now, when you get on further and further and further, then generally speaking, my personal opinion is that you should aim to be stronger. So you should be aiming to be able to do more and more and more magically, lift up a heavier and heavier weight. So you shouldn't just rely on phoning up your friends, these fucking spirit petition shit. You shouldn't just rely on that. Obviously, if you need that sofa moved, phone up your friends to help. But when you don't need a sofa moved, train to move the sofa. I.e., if you want to turn someone into a frog and you can't do it yourself, you might need help to do that. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't keep trying to work on getting the power to turn someone into a frog. Just don't break the universe while you're at it, because there's a lot of things that live in this universe, and they don't like it when you tinker with their habitat, apparently. Anything to add, Chris?
Yes, I guess. Yeah, it's more a case of knowing how much access you've got. Obviously, the super witch answer is, you know, pulling energy from not just this version of you, but all versions of you, allowing you to tap into the greater branch, or try and reach as close to that trunk as you can.
Forest mode, Chris.
Forest mode.
Forest mode.
I
Or
remember
maybe
a
even just
specific
branch
person.
mode at this point.
Branch mode. Forest mode is when you start ripping holes in universes through multiple universes at once.
Yeah,
Starts to be,
reorganizing the furniture.
yeah, feng shuiing the shit out of the universe.
Katie Veronica is back, and she says that Bridget was in Michelle's very detailed dream last night. So I've set her the task to tell me who the lady was, what was her question, and what was her answer. The dream suggests she said yes. Oh dear God, woman, you've set Bridget on some poor unsuspecting person. Katie Veronica, you is a bad witch, aren't you? You're a bad witch trying to do good. And I admire that, Katie Veronica. I admire you're trying to do good. And I'm sure good will become of this when Mrs. Bridget does take that person, melt them down in the cauldron. Ever got in a really hot bath? Ouch. Yeah? Because you didn't turn the cold on properly. Imagine that times 100 million bajillion infinities. And that'll be what the person is going to have to go through as a Bridget melts them down and then recasts them. Katie Veronica, you did the right thing, but it'll be painful to watch. Some say that's kind of the fun part of doing the work, but those people aren't sociopaths, so. Anything to add, Chris?
I'm not even sure you're still on the same universe, love.
Just so Chris knows, you told me to do it. Chris, you told her to do it, so it's your fault.
Okay.
Yes, Katie Veronica. Chris often tells people to throw unsuspecting mundanes in a cauldron, stir them up, and cook a nice broth with that. In previous lives, I think, Chris.
Essence of Muggle.
Yes, essence of Muggle. So, obviously, feel free to ask any questions, but I'm wondering if we should talk a little bit about this whole Witch Wars thing, because the Witch Wars 4 results is going to be released after this. So, the whole point was the creation and the origins of the universe, people going and looking at it. But that wasn't so much the point. It wasn't about going and saying what it was about. Because we did a whole show on that, I think, creation and myth and that. But it was about techniques that can be used to go and do it. So basically, it was all about the technique. So we are going to discuss that in the Witch Wars 4 results after this show. But we should probably, so don't worry, that will be coming up at the end. But is there any other questions that we want to do on Ask a Witch? Because it's open mic night, so they can ask anyone anything. New subject. Does an egregore need a sigil? No, an egregore does not need a sigil. I don't know what scares me more, that you're making an egregore or you're feeding people to Bridget. I'm not entirely sure which is the scarier thing. But Chris, like how we do, we sense and we kind of see what the latest thing is for the next month or so in terms of topics and that, what magical things they're doing, goes through lots of people doing the same magical thing. I'm wondering whether October is going to be Egregore and Spirit Creation month. I'm thinking there's a lot of people that are going to be birthing some god-awful monstrosities.
Yeah, I think they call it synchronicity.
Yeah, that. So, egregore creation and the like. Sigil. Do you need a sigil? You could use a sigil. I think a lot of people do use sigils for egregore creation. I personally don't tend to. whenever I have used a sigil for egregore creation, it's normally been, if it's a corporate egregore and that sigil's been the logo of the company, logo of the corporation, perhaps one time I might have suggested to someone, if they wanted their egregore to be able to do a certain thing, that it might be nice to create a sigil and put that sigil as the lens of the egregore's eyes, because of course when you see a monster and the like, you can't help, well, particularly this monster, you can't help but stare it in the eyes. And if those eyes do a certain thing, and that's related to a certain sigil you have, that you've made, then maybe working two spells together. You've got the egregore, but then you've also got the fact that you're using sigil magic as well, which is quite complicated. But if you understand it, you can certainly make it work for you.
I've only used sigil magic in combination with a manifestation of a, you know, servitor or whatever, has been with golems.
Oh,
But that's
okay.
just because I like to keep with the traditional, you know, Hebrew method. So
Putting it in their
that
mouth.
way, yeah. I don't obviously speak or write Hebrew, never have. So I would use sigil magic as a good replacement for that. So at least it works for me.
Okay. So has there been any interesting questions that people have asked you in general recently, Chris?
Not particularly. I've had more requests about textile magic again lately.
Okay.
And we seem to have got over the wave of weather magics. That was a thing for a while. Lots of different
And money
people were doing
magic.
that.
Weather magic, then money magic, and then the next will be egregores.
Yeah. So luckily we did a really good video on that, an Ask a Witch earlier this year, I think. On
are you saying it's good because you remember what we talked about, or are you just saying it's good because we did it, therefore it must be?
Bit of both.
I can't remember what was in it.
I'm also saying that because it had a lot of views. So
oh, did it? Okay.
I'm assuming that one went down fairly well. But yeah, I don't think we need to recover it here, but redirect you to that video if needs be. But yes, egregores seem to be a good thing this month. I imagine that's possibly getting closer to the getting closer to Samhain. I guess more people will want to play with those sorts of, so creating fetches is a nice method to do around this time of year when the veil's thinnest.
Easier to give birth when the veil's finished.
Yeah.
Give birth to monsters and the like.
So
I mean, it's certainly better than celebrating a Sabbath that you do the same thing every year upon year upon year upon year and upon year. Making something and then giving birth to a monster might be quite a fun thing to do this October instead of celebrating Samhain.
Yeah. You should probably cut in the monster mash there.
Oh, I haven't got that listed.
So
I could probably do it afterwards, but I can't do it because I haven't loaded it up on the live thing. I've got a couple of things, but the monster mash is not one of them, I'm afraid.
Oh, got in. But yeah, it's an appropriate time of year for people to be thinking that. It's a good time for pulling things through and creating new things on either side that involve the other. So it's also nice to use more base magics with the world going topsy-turvy.
Why is it a good time to pull things in? What is in, I can't believe it's not butter, if it's not actually butter. Because you hear a lot about, oh, the veil is a thin. At certain times of the year, and this is not just the only time, is it? People forget about the other time.
Yeah, they forget about Beltane.
Yeah.
So,
But what is it that makes it thin? Is it some sort of a steroid cream rubbed on the ozone layer or something?
um,
Is it is it greenhouse gases, Chris? Is that what makes it thin? What is it? How long has this thin veil been about? Starting around October time, the autumnal time. Has it been since the creation of the world? Or has it been before that? When this was all a lava rock? Was that veil still there? Talk about that.
it's part of the ebb and flow. So, like the waves move.
So earthly menopause.
I wouldn't have called it that, but that happens a little bit more regularly. But yes, it's part of ebb and flow.
Right, okay. So you're not going to give us the secrets, in other words, of it. You're just going to say, right, okay. We'll leave that there then. We have another question, which is an interesting one. Could we do a group ritual over Samhain on Witchcraft Live? Yes, of course we could. I'll look forward to you setting that up for us. Do you see what I did there, Chris?
I did.
Yeah. Witchcraft Live, if you're in the Witchcraft Live group, then good on you. If you're not in the Witchcraft Live group, you're dead to me personally. And why aren't you in there? It's ridiculous that you're not in there. Witchcraft Live group and the Thoth Witchcraft Shop sponsor this show. If you ain't watching it in there, you need to get in there. There's a lot of cool people in there talking about a lot of cool stuff. It ain't like other Facebook groups where they just put a load of memes and shit on there. But it is your group at the end of the day. Witchcraft Live group is your group. We created it for our students of the Thoth Mystery School. But there are lots of other people that have kind of weaseled their way in. And it's nice to see people, little explorers popping up and stuff. Yeah. And they're coming and going.
I'm going to use that horrid word community.
It's a nice little community there.
Yeah. So, and they seem to be getting more and more autonomous, which is nice.
Yeah.
Making shit happen amongst themselves.
So yeah, I know that a certain someone in the group has started doing like little weekly challenges and stuff, which is really nice to see. So obviously, if you want to do a little group work or something like that, then why don't you post some ideas in the Witchcraft Life group, and then some people might get involved, and come up with some ideas, and you can all talk amongst yourselves.
Sounds good. One thing I will give food for thought on, as you brushed up upon it, would be, particularly Samhain and Beltane as being kind of the veil thinnest parts. The only thing I will kind of, tidbit there for you to go and think about is there is a particular reason that those two are the only true Celtic celebrations.
Oh, you nasty bitch. There's a lot of neo-Wiccans and neon-pagans that are going to be very upset with you saying that their 8 Sabbats are a crock of shit, apart from 2 of them, Chris. I hope you realise that.
Yeah, so there's a particular reason why those 2 are it, but you'd have to go and explore a bit more in order to find out why. But those are the only 2 that you can really evidence all those Celtic reconstructionists. So yeah.
Oh no, not Aidan Kelly. That's that whole Mabon thing, isn't it? Yeah, that's that. Amongst the traditional witchcraft types, that word that I won't repeat is like dirt. No, actually, dirt's a lot more friendly to traditional witches. They like dirt a lot more than they do that word. I don't have a problem with it. It does remind me of my year 2 teacher because it has a similar name, but I didn't like him, and I don't like that particular. Should we call it a modern holiday? 20th century holiday?
Yes. One of their 3 harvests. Why they named it?
Is it older than the Queen's Jubilee, Chris? I'd have to think about that. I'm not entirely sure whether it is or not.
Have you been using Vicks Vapor Rub or something? Has something gone
No,
to
but
your
I
head
have
today?
taken my own drugs.
Okay, that'll be why. That explains a lot.
Yeah. I think Alex asked this in the last Thoth Witchcraft Show. What are your thoughts on the Gallery of Magic books? I think they're the ones you said are absolute shit, Chris. Is that right?
They're the ones where I said 90% of them are shit.
90%.
There's a
Does
lot
it have a
of them,
nice
Liam.
cover on the front and the
There's a
back? Is
lot.
that the
There's a lot of them. There is a lot
right?
of them. But yeah, there's a handful of them in there that have got some interesting tidbits for processing. The only thing that you'd have to be wary of using them is obviously they are based in they are very heavily based in ceremonial magics. So if you're not very good with those or aren't particularly that way inclined, you may struggle with some of them. But some of them have got some really good. I'm trying to think of the name of the person I like.
Because it's different authors, presumably,
Yeah, so the majority of
but
them
it's
are written
one
by one
series.
author, and those ones are shocking. Not going to lie.
Sky said that there's two that have worked well that she's found. Sky, which ones did you like in the series? And then Chris, it'll be interesting to see whether Chris agrees with the ones that he's read, because I presume you haven't read all of them, Chris.
No. Okay, it's the
I
Damon Brand
personally
ones
haven't read them.
that has written most of them, and I'm not so keen on those. But the Gordon Winterfield ones are the ones that I was like, oh, actually, he's got some interesting things to say.
Is it beginnery, or is it? Do you have to have some level of knowledge to actually appreciate it?
I think actually to appreciate them, you need to actually have some decent knowledge.
And would they teach someone with decent knowledge anything new, or is it just a nod towards something that they already know?
What I quite like about it is that they very much have some new flavors that you don't see very often, where they're actually pushing some new thought, or at least feels like it's a new thought. Whereas you know me, I judge books quite harshly, but that's mainly because most of them don't push anything new,
Yeah.
which is the danger of a lot of them. But if you're new to ceremonial magics and you want to kind of push in some, consider some options you may not have considered, then it is quite a good series. But I'm just saying, use it with a pinch of salt. It's a very specific methodology,
Okay.
particularly. So so it's tricky. It really depends on what your understanding of these entities are. So a lot of them work on the kind of angels demons paradigm. So it really depends on your understanding of what those are. So I don't know. It's a step. It's a step in the right direction, and it will definitely give you food for thought. I've had a couple of our patrons have used them, which is how I've ended up reading them.
Right.
Or some of them is because they've been kind of gone, oh, how do you feel about this? And I'm like, I've not heard of it. And I've had to kind of read and kind of get a feels. There were some interesting concept ones. Like I said, the Winterfield ones I really did quite enjoy. Not saying that they're any better than the others, just that they had some interesting tidbits.
Right.
Whereas, yeah, it really depends. All of them will give you food for thought because they're not what you kind of read on the mainstream kind of demonologists and that sort of field of angels, demon lovers. You don't. It's not as it's got a very it's got a very ceremonial fix, but some of the approaches to how they deal with energetic sigils and those sorts of things are quite interesting in there. Their approaches to breaking them down, like, you know, is quite interesting. And they're not quite as in your face traditional. If you come down to, you know, manifesting triangles and circles and shit that you get in the kind of ceremonial stuff, it does try to push a little bit further.
How much are they normally?
So I've got some of them up. They vary. They're kind of they're fairly cheap, depending on which ones they can go anywhere from kind of £9 through to like 30, depending on which ones you're buying. And some of them are
around about 10 to 30 quid. Bearing in mind it's 10 to 30 quid, and then the amount of time that you would take to read the book. Do you think is a worthwhile investment? And if so, who for? What would the kind of decent audience be? Who would get something from it?
Yeah, a lot of them are very specific, which is the one thing I do like about it. Like, they do take a very specific subject and push it within their own paradigm, which is nice. So I'm not hating on them at all. I personally wouldn't find them useful, but that's because
you're a super witch, Chris. You're what they call on social media a super witch. So, would you find any books useful?
Well, no.
What's the most useful magic book you've ever come across for you personally in your own practice?
What I meant was, they're not ones I would recommend to my students necessarily, unless they had a very specific slant. So, like I said, Skyward, I'm not surprised Sky loves them, because obviously they would give. I bet she finds 1 or 2 pages out of a 100-page book that kind of go, oh, okay, that's a food for thought. I'll do it this way though. It's my version.
The Angel Magic one, I think she recommends, and she does say she has her own flair to it, so not necessarily following the recipe.
Yeah,
adding a few extra ingredients, maybe.
I think if you follow them, if you followed them to rote, some of them you would probably get you in trouble. But generally, yeah, you would need to have some kind of foundation to really get anything good out of them. I wouldn't class them as good books for someone beginning out, but then maybe there are some that I haven't seen. I haven't actually read the Money Magic one. I've flicked through bits of it, but I haven't cover to cover.
So is it like a primer type one where you've read loads and loads and loads, and then you read this book and you say, well, it's got it all in there, but it doesn't add anything, but it's nice that it's all in one book instead of in a dozen books. Is it that kind of a feel?
Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of, it would shortcut some of the stuff if you actually, but you'd still need to have an understanding. So, like I said, I totally agree with Sky's recommendation of it, to be honest. But they were, compared to the sorts of shit that a lot of publishers are throwing out, Gallery of Magic is a step up.
Is it better than Llewellyn books? Is it better than Llewellyn books?
It's definitely better than a Llewellyn book, but then I wouldn't expect Llewellyn to write anything even remotely useful for that paradigm of magic. So it wouldn't sit well with a lot of the usual Llewellyn readers. So I think they would fucking struggle with it. But yeah, I think it has its place, and they're interesting read. So in short, the story, I'd literally kind of say, yes, they're a decent read. I wouldn't put all my money on them, if that makes sense.
No.
I would kind of
certainly don't go into debt to purchase them.
No, and you'll want very specific ones, depending on what you're looking at.
Do they look nice on a shelf, Chris?
they've got that kind of. They've got a. You can look them up. They've got that very Da Vinci Code look to them.
Oh,
You know that
okay. They
kind
would
of.
they do that, and they look nice on a shelf. They don't look
Yeah,
like nice on an old kind of shelf. If you've got like, you know, free hands press or a fancy Nephilim press or something like that that costs you 300 quid, you
yeah,
probably wouldn't put that on the same shelf as them. But if you're aspiring that sort of stuff, that you want a
yeah.
shelf that looks somewhat fancy, then maybe you could get those. Is that what you're
No,
saying?
no. They're just kind of like they're very basic,
Well,
but they've got that
Sky
kind
says
of
cheap,
shiny.
like shiny pamphlets.
Yeah,
Right.
because they're not
So they don't
huge.
look nice on a shelf.
No, but they've got that
Yeah.
kind of Dan Brown meets soft gay porn. Like if there was a Mills and
What sort of
Boone,
shelf have you got, man?
if they were if if there was there probably is a gay Mills and Boone, but and I don't know if that's
I
a
would
reference
imagine there
anyone will
are.
understand, but they've got like if there was a kind of gothy Mills and Boone, they'd probably look like that. You know that
Right.
kind of because obviously they've all got kind of angels and demons on the front, so they've got that kind of
Doesn't Mills and Boone have semi-naked men on the front?
no. What half of them are dressed. It's that
Oh, are
kind of
they? Okay. I've never read
it's that
Mills and Boone.
it's a poncy. Um, they're all where you get those stereotypes for rolling the hay with the what do you call them? The milker or whatever. Anyway, but yeah, do that, Sky. Throw
Yeah.
some images of the
But
front
Sky
cover.
said she's going to put some pictures of them in the
Yeah,
group. Yeah. Mills and Boone meets gay porn. You can write underneath the image whether you agree with that or not. I'm wondering if we should write a book, Chris, and if we were to write a book, what do you think people would want us to write a book about?
oh, God knows.
That would be fascinating.
I'm sure they'd want a book on forest mode.
Possibly, I was presuming that it would be for teenage fiction with vampires, werewolves, and witches in, but I think the originals and all that's been done, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think no, I really don't think you should be writing anything like that. There'd be too much tiger penis involved.
But it sells. But then the amount of people that moan and whinge about television witchcraft and witchcraft in books and that, is that not what witches should be doing? Should they not be writing teenage fiction instead of writing the same old book with copy and pasted shit from a gripper? Maybe that's what they should be putting their effort into. You know?
Maybe.
Just have a fairly half decent storyline. It's probably the same with every teenage fiction film. And then just add some actual magic in it. So that way,
Maybe.
when all the people that watch all these TV shows and they think they know a little bit about magic, maybe they actually do for once. Because maybe what you put in the book is actual real magic. Lady Poison told me that I should maybe try doing one of those and give it a go. But she said do one of those choose your own adventure books, you know. So maybe that would be a one that people would like. Choose your own adventure. Do I put rosemary in it, or do I not put rosemary in it?
Okay.
You're making a potion to make someone else's husband fall in love with you and leave their. Oh, you can just imagine what it would be like if I wrote a book like that. It would be all of my most ridiculously annoying clients over the years and what they've asked me to do, and then all of the ones that the troubleshooting type jobs that we've had, from which some people on the Thoth Patreon will know from our client case files, the cases we've tackled. It'll be all of those sorts of things. I wanted to be initiated into a real-life voodoo cult, not understanding what it is. So I took a pledge in a language I don't understand, and then I found that I'd agreed to be fed upon. That sort of stuff. Do I A, go back to my hotel room, or B, go to the secret midnight ritual in the French Quarter in New Orleans? Decisions. If you want to go back to your hotel room, turn to page 69. If you want to go to the secret ritual, turn to page 108. Something like that. It would teach a lot of people, I think. Well, it would teach a lot of idiots how to be less idiotic, maybe.
Maybe. At a push. I don't know. It sounds like a lot of effort. It's a lot of effort.
Well, we do know certain people that ghost write, don't we? And I don't mean write about ghosts. So we only got to come up with a format, and then we can give it to a certain one or two people that are authors. They can do ghost writing, and they could just fill in the blanks. Then we put our name to it, you know?
Okay. Yeah, we could. We could. Oh, got a new question.
Can you safely eat/consume negative energy or parasites? Interesting. That's a very interesting question. Can you eat something that's gone off and has mold in it? It would depend. Well, physically, probably. But will it have a negative effect on you? Well, it depends on how strong that nasty moldy thing is, i.e. how good is your immune system? Do you have a good immune system or not? Why do you want to eat that moldy pancake in the first place, right? Do you want to do it because you want to give it a go? In which case, you're taking a risk. Or are you eating the moldy pancake because there's nothing else to eat? I.e., if you're trying to consume a negative energy or a negative entity, why are you doing that? Are you doing it to give it a go, or are you doing it because you see no other alternative?
Yeah. I'd probably direct you to look to the process of sin eating. That might give you an idea of how useful that process can be. But it's a very specific type of practice.
Oh, so this person's talking about becoming a predator of predators, presumably. You are what you eat, they do say. I've known people to do this, and there is something very important. They teach you at a PT school and at nutritional therapist school that you need to consume a healthy, balanced diet. So I would say eating one or two things is sure, go for it. But I wouldn't necessarily live off of moldy pizza from Domino's. That would be my suggestion personally. You can read into that what you will. You could be a tolerance up like Rasputin did with poisons. Right. Have we got any final questions, or should we go into the Witch Wars 4 results? The guy was asking about psychic surgery, whether it's psychic surgery. So I don't know if, in terms of, are you talking about consuming something from a psychic surgery perspective? I think I understand where you're coming from because I know what you're like. I'm presuming what you mean is like what I used to be like. Oh, something's going to come after me? Well, I'm going to get used to eating those things that come after me because it's fun for the prey to become the predator. That's presumably what I'm thinking of. If you're talking about going out and trying to, like Chris talked about, sin eating, apparently we live in a fallen world according to our good Christian friends, and that it's all full of sin. So there's got to be some pretty gluttonous sin eaters out there. Or maybe there's so much sin, Chris, that they've overate and killed themselves by overeating. Is sin eating on the list of eating disorders? Are we aware of that? Has it been put on that yet?
Okay.
Is it an eating
Maybe.
disorder?
Maybe.
Maybe if
No.
enough people start doing sin eating and get into trouble, it might be put on the list of official. Because every edition of the book they need to bring out some more psychological problems. Otherwise someone will be out of a job. Look, so there we go.
Well, the point I was trying to make was more a case of it's a way of dealing with how that process works, and what is quite interesting is how, like what Liam was saying with the kind of nutrition basis, sin eating is a very specific practice. So it involves some very, very specific protocols for doing such work. So what's quite nice about looking at it as a process from end to end kind of gives you the opportunity to kind of go, okay, so they do that bit because of this, and then it's always followed up with this to make sure it's complete. So so
Buy a
it's
Sin
a
Eater
very...
from shop.creepyhollows.com/SinEaterEntity.html. That is fascinating. I have so got to look at that. I so got to look that up.
So it's a process to kind of give you an opportunity to look at the nitty gritty of it, and allow you to kind of apply how that process works to your methodology. Obviously, with psychic surgery, that's a slightly different process altogether. But if you were to kind of compare them, you'd see all the pros and cons of the process of absorbing negative energy. But it still goes down to what me and Liam have always said, which is why waste a good meal. It's just knowing how to absorb and how to deal with that and how to redirect it.
Maybe we should do an episode on it.
Important skill. Yeah,
we could do a podcast episode on it. There might be one on there, actually. I'm not sure. It might actually be called You Are What You Eat. I'm not sure. If not, we will add it to the No Holds Barred Witchcraft podcast list of episodes. So, are we ready to go and do the Witch Wars 4 results?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, let's go and do the Witch Wars 4 results and that. There we go, that's enough of that. Witch Wars 4, official. How well do you think people did this Witch Wars, Chris, on our competition that we hold every month or so? Every 2 months? Yeah. Something like that?
Something like that. I was quite impressed, actually, how many people tried this, because I think the last one scared a few off.
Yeah.
So actually...
The demon one.
The demon one really did... scare a few people off.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, I feel like, has given people the opportunity to kind of figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are. In terms,
and no one died this time either, which is always a bonus.
Yeah. So I think on the whole, I've been quite impressed with what people have done. How many actually went as far as we would have liked? Well,
there's always room for improvement.
So, what about you?
I thought that it was quite good. I knew that it was an easy Witch Wars because you're basically being marked on effort at the end of the day. So it's not so much about, like most of the Witch Wars, it's a very clear cut. You won or you didn't. There's a very clear kind of threshold, a finishing line. With this one, it was basically, more about trying and put an effort into trying, right? So do you want to explain what they were supposed to do? Because maybe one or two people might have got a little bit confused as to what the purpose was, or got a little bit carried away.
Okay. So yeah, so the idea was to use all the psychic abilities and methods that you have at your disposal to explore the origins of the universe. So the idea was that you would use all the methods you could to kind of scientifically check off and corroborate your own knowledge around the origins of the universe. So the idea was, yeah, so you could use as many methods as you like, or stick with one method and just keep pushing time and time again. It was entirely up to you. But the important part was that you showed you're working. So what exactly, when you kind of handed in your dossier or whatever format that you chose to use, that we were able to follow the processes you've used and how you've pushed them or how you've utilized each of them. And yeah, I think it's been interesting.
Yeah, it was good. Some people just chose one method. Some people chose multiple methods. So to be fair, the way that we basically ranked them was we took all of the submissions, all of the stuff that people had sent, either posted in one of the groups, the Witchcraft Live group, or sent to us directly. Most people sent us directly little PDFs or pictures and the like. And then we sat down and went through them all. So we haven't marked them based on what they've said or what they've seen or heard or any of that stuff. So it's not about what they think happened with the origins of the universe. It's about the attempt, the journey for them to go back. That's what people are being marked on. Now, do we want to announce the winner, or do we want to go into any particular order with this? Because obviously the Thoth Points leaderboard will be out tomorrow with everything tallied up for this month's Thoth Points. And I think there is going to be a definite shift in as to what's going on there. But do we disclose the actual winner?
Yeah, I think we should. I think what we should kind of prefix it with is that obviously there was a clear winner for this one. Kind of the methodology of that individual just was, outstanding compared to the others, and kind of pushed harder, I guess. You've got to remember this was a points for effort exercise rather than points for accuracy. So whereas actually I think this individual kind of hit both.
They were very accurate, but what I was personally most impressed by was the attempt to try and make the way of journeying foolproof. So the people probably that scored a little lower points, they were using things like, I did a tarot reading, or I did a little bit of automatic writing or something like that. It was very much a case of where you're just kind of tuning in. Whereas the winner, their attempt was, no, I'm going to go through things extremely logically, and I'm going to constantly try and back up where I am, going backwards in a logical order, back to the creation of the universe in a logical order. So it wasn't necessarily about, I'm going to try and view the creation of the universe. Oh, I'm seeing this. I hope it's my universe. It was literally starting off logically in a magical manner and using spirits and deities and the like to kind of help with their assistance. So I think with this person's approach, it was to use a planetary magic basis, but to go to each of those energies, ask for their assistance and their opinion. So it was a case of interviewing spirits that have been around, that should know, comparing and contrasting what all of those spirits say, and then going back and viewing it yourself So going and taking the journey of basically, if I want to go to Hawaii, asking a bunch of people that have been there before, what is your thoughts about Hawaii? What did you get on there? Is there anything I should look out for? Bloody blah. Doing your background homework. And the most important thing here was that the background homework was not going and buying a fucking book, not going on blog posts, not that. It was literally logically driven. What was around? I'm going to go in the order, reverse order of evolutions, essentially, of spirits and deities and the like. So you were able to jump from one to the other to the other. Yes, there were things that you fell down on in terms of not fully understanding, but at the end of the day, the approach you took was probably the most logical, and it also did help to give you a lot of information that you were being very specific on as well. So it wasn't the I'm writing down on my automatic writing and whatever comes. It was, no, I want the answer to this and I'm not leaving till I get it. That was what we liked, and the kind of cross balancing. Any particular thing that you liked about this person's attempt that really stuck out to you?
I like what you say with the logic of it, but also, you know, it was able to have the focus and unfocus, I suppose, is the bit I like, which is a lot closer to, I guess, our own probably methodologies for if we were to do this from their standpoint. It's probably for us, like you say, that's why it seems so logical.
Yeah,
it's kind of, you know, it was fairly scientific in its approach, but still had enough layers of abstract that is obviously what I like. But yeah, it's one of those that yeah, it was a very interesting approach.
and the protections as well, there was protections involved as well, so it was a case of, it was treated like a serious adventure. So I know people that go caving down the Mendips, they take a torch and maybe some sandwiches, right, and they'll go in the cave. Some of them will get stuck, some of them will only venture a little bit in until they feel uncomfortable and come back out again. What this person did is the magical equivalent of saying, I'm going to tell someone when I'm going in the cave, and I'm going to tell them that I'm going to ring them up at a certain time so they know to come and get me. I'm also going to take a rope. I'm also going to take a headgear and a head torch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask experts in the field, i.e. potholers and cavers and climbers, to give me equipment. I'm not going to go to the shop and try and choose the one that I think's nice. I'm going to get them to give me ones that they say is appropriate, right? And then descend into that cave and then come back out again and I do the ringing up, do the check-in, cleansing, cleaning, all of that sort of stuff was done. It was done very logically, very well done. So the winner, for which was 4, from the Thoth Witchcraft Patreon, and we won't be using your real name, we'll be using the name that we've given you, because obviously anyone that's on the Patreon that talks to us, we bestow upon them, if they don't pick it themselves, that is, a name that we can then talk about you publicly without revealing any financial information or GDPR or personal details of any kind, so people can't track you down and sniper you or something in order to wipe you out so that they can potentially win the next Witch Wars. And other reasons, obviously. So the winner of Witch Wars 4 is the Archivist. You're going to clap, Chris? Come on. The Archivist at least deserves a clap. Yeah. There we go. The Archivist is the winner of this Witch Wars 4 competition, and we will be speaking into you, the Archivist, and we will discuss your prize, because obviously you have the chance, if you will want it, a physical prize that we will send to you. If you don't want it, then fair enough, you don't want it. But I think pretty much everyone wants it because, well, I won't tell you because, well, it's a secret and you have to be a Witch Wars winner to know. So there we go. So the Archivist was, I think, realistically the best. We've awarded the Archivist, I think it was for this attempt, because it's winning a Witch Wars, you get 250 Thoth points for that. So we've awarded 250 Thoth points to the Archivist. Look out for your name, Archivist, on tomorrow's scoreboard in the Witchcraft Live Facebook group. There are one or two people that asked us not to reveal their names, and they're not on the Patreon, so they don't have kind of nicknames or anything like that. So we won't be revealing anyone who doesn't want to be revealed. The runner-up, though, because we did select a runner-up, didn't we? So the runner-up that we went for was, I believe, Calypso.
Yeah, Calypso got there.
So Calypso,
not as varied and necessarily as well thought out, but definitely a really good effort. So yeah, definite runner up. And then obviously we awarded a load of points for lots of different people that tried, because yeah, it was definitely, you know, a well attended rally, should we say. And I think actually all of you, if you deserve some points for what you gave, because they were really good. It was just like I said, this was an approach critique rather than necessarily a who got the most accurate information, because you could have gone straight there and given us exactly, you know, what happened frame by frame. That wasn't necessarily what this was about. So the idea was that you were able to push your approach to a new level, and those two definitely did push their approaches to their next level. There was some serious leveling up going on.
Calypso is an interesting one, because I think Calypso decided to go for the approach that, because again, they're fairly new to this, but they have developed kind of a very good ability for certain types of psychic work. So what they attempted to do was a slightly different approach. They attempted to go down a route that they're most comfortable with, but by the seams of it, they decided to how would be the best way of putting it? Sternly interview, to the point of maybe being unwelcome to certain spirits. Calypso wouldn't take no for an answer, and it's very apparent in Calypso's work, particularly with a certain someone, Saturn. I had conversations with in regards to you. So again, we won't disclose your real name, but Calypso, you know who you are, and obviously you'll be getting 100 points, being the runner-up on the Thoth Witchcraft point scoreboard, which should be updated tomorrow. I think we will be awarding obviously more points, but we generally only award between 1 and 10 points for people that kind of got involved based on what they did. So 100 points for the runner-up, 250 points for the winner, and the only other people, if it's good or, you know, reasonable, then we can only award 10 points, 1 to 10 points for that.
Bonus
so
points.
I think everyone did get a point, at least, for this attempt. And obviously it's not like you can only get the Thoth points from Witch Wars, because people do all sorts of crazy magical stuff and cause all sorts of trouble that get points awarded. I believe there's a certain someone that's working on converting a famous-ish Christian annoying person to a witchcraft. So that is on the actual Thoth points official. You can get points for doing shit like that. So a couple of honourable mentions, Chris, maybe?
Okay, sure.
Okay, so our honourable mention, I won't say whose name this is, but they started off with what we normally wouldn't award points for. which was to try and do some research in textbooks, magical books, that kind of thing. So kind of starting off in the mundane world for opinion, looking at historical, looking at physics, that kind of thing, for that approach to take. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad approach, but that isn't attempting to go back. And obviously the whole point was to go back, so we can't really award points for that. But once you did that research, kind of used that as a springboard, I suppose, they did an invocation of a deity and a tarot. So I think you've got your kind of two methods there to a certain extent. So invocation is in pulling in knowledge and that, or communication. And then also you've got your tarot. Now, again, with this specific entry, it was one of those things that there's a lot of potentials to go wrong. That's the problem. So with your tarot, when you submitted it, it was basically a tarot reading. So what we need to be able to see is well, how do you know you're getting the right information from your tarot? What are you backing that up? If the deity says one thing, your tarot says another, which one are you believing and why? This is the kind of thing where obviously the winners had some sort of backup for that. So with this, you are attempting it and you are going back and viewing it, sure, but in terms of your approach, it wasn't necessarily a strong enough approach to go back in terms of a foolproof plan. Again, we had one or two people that did tarot. Anyanka chose multiple tarot decks, I think, for it. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then obviously some readers and psychics and that will get on better with certain decks for certain types of work. So with this, is a case of someone that works with tarot, but the tarot cards kind of speak slightly differently. So although tarot was the main, perhaps, medium, the main way of going back, the safety mechanism there was, what am I getting from this? What am I getting from that? And what am I getting from that? And then kind of comparing and contrasting, seeing what gives you more, what doesn't give you more. So we've awarded points for that. But what we would have really loved to have seen is to see other types of magic that didn't involve just tarot cards. So if you'd have added something else in there, then, could have been a little bit different. I think Spirit Master as well. Spirit Master, if you're listening, really interesting because you gave a nice summary. What I quite like about Spirit Masters was that Spirit Master put a lot of information about the very specific approach in stages, going through logically the stages, and then put a nice summary at the bottom. What was good with that is that we were really able to see your workings out a lot more. So that's great in terms of, from a psychic perspective, giving that information across to someone else. That was one of the much more structured entries we had for the competition. So that's definitely a positive for you, because at the end of the day, if you did lots of different approaches and you just read channeled writing, astral travel, this, and this, there's only so much that we can glean from that without interfering with your magical practice and spying on you, which is outside of the rules of this competition this time. So in terms of what we'd like from that, it was good because you've got automatic writing in there, but then you also have, or semi-conscious automatic writing, which was an interesting one because you're still quite in control of it. So you're able to pull in the information, but actually make it logically make sense, as opposed to just waking up with a headache with a load of writing on the walls, which is probably the approach to automatic writing we don't tend to recommend. Or I don't.
Bodily fluids.
Yeah. And you also, I think, did the tarot as well. So 3 card spread as well. So that was nice because you've got 2 really different methods of that. And then who else? Obviously, Sky from the group wrote a little bit about the Witch Wars competition in the group. So you can go off and you can actually have a look at that, because that's in the Witchcraft Live group, I think, from I remember. And then who else have we got? There's an anonymous person from Facebook who specifically said that they don't want Thoth points and they prefer They prefer to be anonymous. They don't want to be talked about at all. So yes, we did receive your entry, and yes, obviously we have counted it, but you won't be talked about publicly other than this. So if you do want specific feedback, you contact me or Chris, and then that way we can have a little private discussion with you if you'd like. Anyone that's on the Patreon, obviously, generally you have your consultations with us where we talk about stuff. So if you want to go into any detail, anyone that entered the competition or anyone that didn't enter the competition, then just be sure to bring it up next time we speak to you on one of the mentoring sessions, and we'll go into detail. In terms of, obviously, Sky's put a question, can we please see person's work? We won't be publishing the people's work, partly because, let's be fair, you're all witches, and the whole point of this is for it to be anonymous. So we won't be putting names and that sort of thing. However, if you yourselves would like to publish your own work or talk about it, then please do. We're not going to, put a stop to that or anything like that, because it's your words. But what we don't necessarily want to do is release a load of information with a name attached to it. And then, even if it's not necessarily their real name, they feel uncomfortable about putting that out there. Obviously, some people specifically said don't discuss it, so we haven't talked about all the entries. And then other people kind of will generically discuss things because obviously they're aware with the mentorship program that, the whole nickname thing is what keeps you anonymous with that. Was there any other things that you wanted to cover, Chris, in terms of the entries?
Yeah, I suppose just another thank you, really, for... it was really interesting, and the main reason that we don't share is because that approach can be quite personal. So it's more a case of, if people want to share what they did and how they did it, then go ahead and share. But yeah, we have those kind of processes for a reason, and I'm looking forward to actually some of the follow-ups on these, because actually the way in which they've kind of outshined where they're normally at in that particular, obviously we're eager to push you further. So now you've proved you can do this in this way. Obviously we've got to find new challenges to push you elsewhere. But no, it was a really good one. And hopefully it's got everybody kind of cemented back in, ready for the next Witch Wars. So it should give everybody a chance to kind of go, okay, well, we'll level up again with the next one, which, if my math is right, will be the kind of first weekend of December when we launch that one. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes next time, because actually,
Witch Wars 5.
Witch Wars 5 really good work.
Is it's going to be a difficult one, Witch Wars 5, and it's going to be something that is a very, very, very popular subject with Witch Wars 5. Me and Chris have not decided yet whether we're going to release Witch Wars 5 completely publicly. So what we're going to do is, with any Witch Wars, we'll do a Witch Wars introductory video to launch the competition. But this is going to be one that, if you thought the first Witch Wars was bad when we got you to Hex and Heal and that with the competitions, then this is going to be an area of magic that a lot of people are very interested in, but the snowflakes aren't going to like it. Therefore, we may choose a slightly different format, or we'll be very, very, very specific with the information that we release at the end of it. So the information that we've released with this one, obviously we haven't read out word for word what people have put or posted any of the pictures or anything like that you've sent, because obviously we said that we wouldn't do that. However, feel free to post that yourself. With the next Witch Wars, please be making sure that when we launch the next one that you fully read the terms and conditions, because it's going to be one hell of a wars. So there we go. Is there anything else, Chris?
No. Music on the way out.
I suppose we should put the music on the way out then.
Mm-hmm.